Our next on the agenda is a guy who's one of my personal heroes, and I think probably uh, most of our personal heroes, is Mr. Tommy Clack. Tommy, as most of you know, was a forward observer with the 2nd of the 27th Infantry Wolfhounds, the 25th Division, and he was wounded on May the 29th, 1969. He lost 3 limbs, the hearing in one ear, and had many internal injuries. He spent 22 months in the Atlanta VA hospital and has had 50 inpatient surgeries and 15 outpatient surgeries. So, this is a profile in courage here. He has made being a veterans advocate his life's work. It would have been mighty easy for him to just say to hell with it and stay in that hospital forever, but he didn't. And he has used his injuries uh, as an example of what can be done with one's life, no matter what kind of obstacles one runs into. And he is an example for all of us, and an inspiration for all of us. So, Tommy, take it away, bud.
If that was well worth that $100 I gave you, bud. So thank you. Okay. But I I am honored to be part of your meeting today, and I apologize for the past scheduling. Some of you may know I ended up in the hospital at the last time. That's the first time I've had an ambulance ride in my life, and it was wow, it was more scary than Vietnam. Ended up, I shared with you, it ended up being a prescription the VA had put me on about 2 weeks before that caused my system to shut down and I wasn't able to breathe. And we took me off of it, and I'm getting back to my normal. But well, I tell you what, I don't know how many you've taken an ambulance ride, but that is one scary proposition in life. I'm just glad that there were experts, and Northside Hospital did a great job. So God was with me, and here I am. So thank you for this opportunity. But a lot of you that are part of the great organization that you are, and I go back a long way. I'm sure Pete Mecca is on here, and Marilyn goes back a long ways with back into the 80s with Ron Miller and I and other programs, and Dan Holtz with Georgia Department of Veterans Service, and Skip and a lot of you. We've all worked with the same goals in mind, and that is to honor veterans. And I think that's what's important as we go through life. And I am blessed. Part of my story is how I was raised like all of you. I grew up with a World War II dad, and I think that was a real blessing for me and a lot of us, because he was a very disciplined man. He was at Pearl Harbor when it got hit December 7th of 41, went through the South Pacific without getting injured. Went back to the Korean War and got injured in 52. So I grew up with a disabled dad that went to the VA in the 50s. So I saw that back then, you may remember if you were in Atlanta, that was called the Old 48 out at Oglethorpe University. And so I'm familiar with the VA from that aspect. But I think being around him and my uncles and everybody in my family, like your families, were all World War II and Korea. That was the direction that I was going in. And I'm one of those in high school. I actually wrote a paper in the 8th grade when Vietnam was just starting. History was a hobby, that this was going to be my generation's, our generation's war. I don't know why I wrote that, but I just felt it. Okay. And sure enough, that was our generation's war. And, while I graduated from Decatur High School down in Decatur, Georgia, and went out to the University of Houston, Texas on an athletic scholarship. I could have stayed in college, but it was not my calling at the time. The anti-Vietnam was going on, anti-military was going on, and I'm one of those that dropped out of college and volunteered for the Army, and wanted to go to Vietnam just to see if I was half the man my dad was, and got that wish. So, like all of us, we all had different experiences, and I think when Pete liked his book, and you've got your stories being published, and Pete's now got 2 radio stations. We're getting the word out about all of our different aspects of what we went through, and each one of us has a very unique story that needs to be told. so that the future doesn't forget us. And I think that's what's important, that what you do as an organization and what all of us do is in our volunteer groups is we make sure that society doesn't forget us. And if you look at the things, I don't know how many memorials y'all put up and how many Mays. It's just, I know every May, AVVBA put up a memorial honoring a Vietnam veteran in Atlanta. And that was a great event to look forward to every May. And those are things that make a difference in how we go through life. But I think my blessing in terms of being a triple amputee was that I don't know how to put this. I got assimilated back in society by being around guys just like myself. The Atlanta VA became the Southeast Center for amputees from Vietnam, and we had over 200 guys go through there missing 1 to 3 limbs. We didn't have any quad amps go through there. And a little statistic most people aren't aware of, but Vietnam had 73 triple amputees, and 3 of us were from the DeKalb County area time frame. Everybody knows Max Cleveland. And Chad Colley went to North Georgia College in terms of being from Georgia. So, and myself, and that was 3 out of the 73. For those of you not aware, Max Cleveland's not doing very well right now. He is battling cancer and congestive heart failure and is bedridden. Spoke with him a couple of weeks ago. And I hope he makes it through his trials and tribulations that he's going through. But that opportunity to be around those guys helped us all become back into society in terms of being human beings. And I still keep all of us. There's out of 212 amputees that went through the Atlanta VA, there's only 82 of us left alive, and I keep us all on the same page in terms of who's doing what, where, and how, when, and where. We used to have a reunion about every 10 years, but everybody's gotten too young to do that, so we don't do it anymore. So these are things that make a difference. And my experiences growing up with my dad and my mom taught me that you always give more to life than you take from it. Even as a teenager back in the 60s, we were taught that we volunteer. And even back in the 60s, the Saturday before Memorial Day, my family was at Marietta National Cemetery putting flags on those graves. And that's how I raised my kids. And that's how the grandkids are being raised. So that we pass this heritage on how we honor, America's military personnel and our deceased veterans. And that's what we continue to do. And I think we understand we have a great mission to accomplish in life. And we still got a lot to do, folks. There are a lot of people out there in society that don't agree with you and I in terms of where we're heading. People don't believe this, but here it is, 2021. And I've already had one incident this year, and it happens multiple times every year, where somebody will see me in the community and say people like me shouldn't be seen in public. That's America. Well, that's part of America, and I don't bring myself down to their level and I put them down. I try to share with them. You saw me drive my van to that parking place. I got out of it by myself. Sometimes I've got my grandkids with me, and we're going to the mall for something, and I share with them that I'm a human being just like you, or I just get around a different mode. So that's part of my message to people is we don't bring ourselves down to the level of those who try to put us down. It's just part of society that we deal with. It's like those in society that don't agree with the way you and I think. I tell those that disagree with me that the big difference between you and I is that I'm willing to go off and serve and die if need be to give you the right to disagree with me, but you want me to be shut up, heard, and die and go away. And that's the big difference between us. And that's what we face in society. Society wants us to not be vocal in terms of what we do. A great example, Memorial Day this year, I spoke up in Knoxville, Tennessee at their public event. And when the program was starting, the MC was calling the pastor up to do the invocation. And this lady stood up about 4 rows out in the audience, and she had the Eastern garb on where everything but it was covered except her face. And she said, "I will be offended if there's a prayer given at this event." and the MC froze and the pastor froze, and I'm not shy. I turned my mic on and I said, lady, with all due respect to your beliefs, this is America. This is our Memorial Day. We're a Christian nation and we have prayers at our events. And if you feel uncomfortable, you need to leave. Well, the crowd went wild and clapped and she left. Okay. But my point with that story is you and I and all of us in America that believe in our God and our country, we've got to stand up for what is right and not be intimidated. That's part of our mission in life now, is to pass on to this younger generation. My oldest grandson is 12, and I'm watching some of his peers that he runs around with in the neighborhood. They weren't raised like I was raised, and like the grandkids are being raised or my kids are being raised. And we have to constantly share with them the reality of what it is. And some of the parents in the neighborhood have actually told my daughter that they don't want their children talking to me. So that means I'm getting my message through if that's going on. But that's important that we be vocal, folks. I think that's the most important thing. That's why the book you're putting together, what Pete does with his books and radio shows, and what all of us do with our messages we go through life is very important. More importantly, there are a lot of veterans in our community that I call it falling through the cracks. They may make $1 too much to get help from the city, county, state, or the VA. And we need to be involved in helping them. I just recently had a case. I'm blessed that, and I see Dan Holtz's picture there. Dan well knows what the Georgia Department of Veteran Service does for the state of Georgia, but having been a veteran service officer for decades, we still get calls from family members that still need help. And I got a call 2 weeks ago from a 93-year-old widow that her husband had died, and she did not have the money to get her husband interred or cremated so that we could get him to a national cemetery. Well, myself and several of us got together and we raised the funds to make that happen. Excuse me. I just had a tube put down my throat last Friday. My throat's still sore. And my point in that is we've always got to be receptive to those that need our help. You and I are blessed that we're still alive, but there's a lot of people out there that need our help and we need to be involved. So more than just our meetings and our events, we need to be looking out in the community in terms of those that need help. And it's important that we respond to those calls in terms of what we're doing there. So there's a lot that we still have to do in terms of our lives. Excuse me. I share with part of the medication they had me on to get rid of that effect of that pill that's caused me a short breathing spell here and there. But the thing, if I got one message, I don't want to talk, I'm preaching to the choir. We're all veterans. We all had different experiences. The thing is that we've got to leave a legacy to the generation falling behind us so that they step into our steps. If we look at our veterans organization and look at how young all of you are, there's nobody stepping into our shoes as we die off. And our veterans organizations are dying. As of October 1 of last year, for example, we were down to 18 million living veterans in America. 10 years ago, that used to be 25 million. You know, they're projecting that by the year 2035, there may only be 9 million living veterans in America. So what's going to happen to the legacy that we're trying to pass on? And this younger generation, my son's generation, probably some of your sons or cousins or nephews or whoever generations, they're not ready to step into our shoes yet. And we've got to encourage them to continue to do that. For those of you who don't know, my son, Adam, is 9th generation Army in my family. He was one of our Army Rangers and had 4 tours in combat in Iraq and 5 tours in Afghanistan. And I still see all of his young, he was really blessed, guys. He served with the same guys for 12 years. Okay. I mean, think about that in terms of what we had to deal with Vietnam. And these guys will come in and visit. We still hunt and fish year round. So they'll come into Georgia to go fishing and hunting with Adam and I, and they're all the same. And I bring them up for one reason, trying to get the VA's attention with them. Our generation dealt with Agent Orange. Their generation is dealing with something called BPA. BPA is a chemical in a plastic water bottle. It leaches out into the water. They drunk water out of bottles over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And my son Adam and his group are all experiencing the same issues that are coming from BPA that the VA doesn't recognize yet. So that's why we battle the VA, and we make sure that the veterans and the widows get what they have earned. And for those of you that haven't dealt with the VA, I encourage you, if you earned it, go after it. Okay, it's important because you earned what you're entitled to. And it's, you're not going to believe this, but in going to the VA, I will deal with some residents and interns once in a while. I like asking questions. I want to know, if you're going to do this to me, why are we doing it? And they will look at me and they will say, why are you asking all these questions? You're getting this free. And I will look at them and I will say, I'm getting this free. Look at this. This is part of the, I point at me, I say, look at this. This is part of the cost of freedom. The VA is there to take care of us who shall have borne the battle. Nothing is free. But that's the mentality that it exists in the arena. Now, the VA today is not the VA that I came home to in '69. And it's, for those of you that have dealt with the VA, you may not agree with me, but the VA is in the business of finding a way to say no and minimize what they do. Veteran service officers and those that fight on behalf of veterans are finding a way to say yes and maximize what they earn. So it's a constant struggle. Look at the Blue Water Navy. I mean, the VA fought that bill for decades in terms of they didn't want more veterans in the VA system in terms of that particular service. So this is an ongoing battle. And I share with every elected official, be they city, county, state, or national, that if this country's got enough money to fight a war, it's got enough money to take care of the warrior and his or her family. And that's one of the missions that we've got in life, because Congress is forgetting that. And what scares me, you may not be aware of this, but it started back under President number 42. But there's still the thought process out there that they want to raise taxes, more taxes, by taxing VA pension and compensation. That's being discussed as we are sitting here today. That would be a tragic mistake for Congress to move in that direction. So not only do we have a battle here in our local community, we've got this nationwide battle that we've got to stay collectively involved together. So there's a lot that we've got to do. And like all of you, we could talk forever on many different things, but we've all got our own unique experience. I just thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit with you in terms of where I come from and what I do. God has blessed me in so many ways, folks. For those of you that know me and see me, I am a triple amputee. My saving grace, God was good to me, is that I have no paralysis. So I can get down on the floor and climb back up in my chair. I can get in the pool and swim. I don't swim like you. I get in and run in place to keep the cardiopulmonary system in shape. But, I drive my own car. I fly commercial airline. I hunt and fish and shoot year round. I am so blessed that every day that I wake up, my first words out of my mouth is, thank you, God, for another day to be alive. And I think it's important as we go through life that we live it to its fullest. And if one of our fellow veterans, whoever calls us and says, I need this, you and I owe it to our brothers and sisters to find a way to make that happen. And I encourage you to continue to do what you're doing and stay the course in terms of what you accomplish. And everybody get their stories in terms of this book that you're putting together. And that's going to be history that's going to be passed on. With that, I will shut my mouth and we'll move forward. Okay.
Thank you, Tommy.
Sorry about the voice, guys.
You are a true inspiration. You absolutely are. Do we have any questions? Does anybody have anything they want to ask Tommy about? Don't be shy. We got time.
Well, the one thing I will share with all of you, and you all know this, we all are blessed that we work with really great teams. And throughout my life, I have been able to work with really great teams. and we've all heard there is no I in team, but the more we work together, the more we get accomplished, and the more we stay the course, the more we make things happen. And our future is to ensure that the younger generation of veterans and military families coming up have what we have. And I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but one of the things that dismays me is some of our generation have come to me and complained about this new generation of veteran getting stuff that they didn't get as a veteran. And I look at them and I share with them, do you know that once they start getting this benefit that we didn't have, that means the future generation of veterans are also going to have that. And the more we do, the more off we're going to be helping each other in terms of veterans. And so the more that Congress does for us, I think that's important. And if you're not aware of this, for example, in Australia, in Europe, if you serve in the military and you get injured, you're actually given a card and you get your health care free for life. Whereas in America, we go to the VA system. And I'm thankful that the VA is there, as probably some of you are, but I share with elected officials, if you want to see socialized medicine, go to the VA, okay? There are long time. For example, I have a dental appointment coming up in December that I asked for in February. That's how far a backlog they are, okay? And that's part of the process. Thankful for what I get. But we have to stay on top of that as a team to make sure that future generations have what we didn't have, folks.
Tommy, a question, and I'm in a learning mode here. How does a triple amputee, especially with loss of both legs, how do you drive a car? I've never seen that.
Well, attitude. You get in it and you do it. In all seriousness, as I said, I have no paralysis, so I transfer from my wheelchair to a 6-way seat that turns right or left, up and down, back and forth, and I can turn into the steering wheel. So I wear an artificial arm on the right side I have no shoulder joint, and my arm fits onto my shoulder with a strap, and it has a shoulder joint, comes down as a upper arm, has an elbow joint, comes out the forearm, and it has a hook on it. So in front of me, I steer with my left hand, and I have a device here. We now have something called a computer assisted drive system. I have a computer box up here on the left that I can control everything that you control with your hands and your feet. So when I put my hook in this hand control, I pull back to accelerate while I'm steering, and I push forward to brake while I'm steering. And I am not tuning my own horn, but I just turned 1,700,000 miles since March 71. I normally get about 250, 300,000 on my vehicles. I've never gotten a ticket and I've never had a wreck. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I drive very defensively, because I know the first time I have an accident, they're going to say that guy shouldn't be driving, and they're going to take my driver's license from me. And driving is my independence, because I am there early and I leave after everybody else. You know, if you show up 10 minutes early, you're on time. You know, and everybody in society doesn't work that way. So my driving is my independence. Yes, it looks odd, but it's very functional. What's really unique is in Europe, this computer pad that I've got here, where I can turn the lights on, the blinker, washers, radio, everything is actually in the steering column, a steering wheel in Europe. And one day we're going to have that here. Advances are being made constantly. I have a friend who's a quadriplegic at the C2 level. David actually drives his car by blowing in a tube like he shoots his rifle. The technology is so phenomenal today. And that's the real blessing. I don't take this the wrong way. That's the real blessing of war sometimes, is that it advances technology to the point that better prosthesis and other things come forward. When I walked out of the VA hospital March 7th of 71, and I walked out of the VA, I had to prove to myself I could do that. My right leg, I have 3 inches of femur on my right side. My left knee is off right at the top of the knee, but my right leg has 3 inches of bone. And that leg weighed 25 pounds. And when I fell, I couldn't get up. So I stopped wearing those things. Okay. But the legs today, I've actually met young guys and girls that are in the same shape I am, on one side or the other with these IEDs. That 25-pound leg I had today only weighs 5 pounds. And you can look at these men and women walking, and you don't know they've got an artificial limb because it's got these computers that oscillate and does everything for them. And I'm happy for them. That is great. Okay.
Thank you. And I am so impressed with you taking charge of your life and your mobility. Thank you.
All to God, buddy.
Skip.
Yes.
Yeah, Tommy, I know you remember a number of years ago, and a lot of us old timers remember when we were still dedicating memorials, you were very much the guy that worked with our dedication of the memorial in Conyers.
That was Ted
That
Brett.
Veterans Parked out there. If it hadn't been for you, we never would have had that memorial. And we had, I can't remember Barney's last name right now, the Marine Medal of Honor recipient. That was an artilleryman that took over an infantry company. He was a Marine.
Barney Barnum.
Yeah, Barney Barnum. And he actually took over an infantry company in the middle of a battle and was originally an artilleryman. So he and I we kind of jive in that area. But I want to thank you. If it hadn't been for you and your hard work for veterans and for that park, we never would have had that Conyers Memorial. And it's a beautiful memorial. For any of you that have not seen it, it's really a nice memorial. So make it your business, get out there and visit. So thanks, Tommy. That wasn't a question, just a comment.
Well, thank you. That's the Walk of Heroes in North DeKalb. And I share with you, that's another story in terms of principles in life. But I had the opportunity to serve as president of that organization for 12 years. And you may remember back in 2017, 18, this cancel culture crap started, and they started removing all these memorials around the country. And I told our board, the Walk of Heroes board, the land where the memorial site is owned by Rockdale County. And I made a comment to the board and to the Rockdale County Commission that if the county moved that Confederate statue from in front of the Rockdale County Courthouse, I was going to resign from that board. And back on July 3rd of last year, in the dark at 10 p.m. at night, right before July 4th, the Rockdale County removed that memorial, and it's gone and sitting in a warehouse. And at the next board meeting we had, which was at that time July 7th, I believe, I resigned from that organization, and I haven't looked back. And I think we've got to stand for what principles are. Canceling history doesn't solve issues, folks. Right or wrong, it doesn't solve issues. And
Right.
You know, we take these things and we move on. But I was honored to be part of that for over 20 years, and well worth the endeavor. If you go on the website at Walk of Heroes, you can see what we built out there. It is a great memorial, and it's just sad those things happen, but you got to stay true to who you are, folks.
Tommy, I've got something to say. This is Mark Walker. I first of all, I want to thank you for your outspoken support of veterans and intelligent behavior on the part of people in governments. The illustration you just gave is one of those. The second thing I'd like to thank you for is being visible in the community. In spite of the negative comments that you sometimes hear, you are an inspiration to everyone, because you're teaching us that you don't need to be perfect to be extraordinarily effective. When I read your bio this morning, I almost cried, because the things that you have done are more than probably 20 or 30 of us have done. And God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Well, I share with you something along that line, and I sincerely mean this. Over my life, I say this over and over again. I've worked with a lot of great teams that make me look good. Okay. And I sincerely believe part of the recognition that I have received has been because I am in a wheelchair, and people like me are not supposed to be doing that. If I had had 4 limbs doing what I had did, there would have been no recognition. So we take these things with an honor that's great, but anything that is awarded goes to the team, folks. And too often we don't recognize the team more than we do in terms of recognizing those who lead. So team is always important, folks. Okay.
Tommy, I wonder if you would comment on the quality of the medical care at the VA.
Everybody has their own story, and having served in the veteran service officer arena for decades, I've watched the VA, in my personal opinion, deteriorate in terms of its ability to deliver health care. The problem is, and Congress doesn't, and I've had the opportunity to testify before Congress several times, that it didn't mount to a hill of beans. Nobody listened. The problem is the VA is so overloaded and understaffed. And I actually wrote my first letter about the VA while I was in the VA, talking about underfunding, understaffing. And you can throw all the billions of dollars you want towards the VA. The problem is the few doctors that really care get so overloaded that they end up leaving. And it's very frustrating. I had to say, prior to 1993, I never saw the same doctor in any visit in any quarter that I went to VA. It was always rotation. Then they assigned us to a primary caregiver. Now everybody has a primary care doctor. The problem with that is that we can't get anything done with the VA unless that doctor writes a prescription or an order to get it done. And a lot of times we can't, it doesn't get solved. And regulations have changed. Prime example, I am currently battling, I was doing it with Senator Perdue. I'm now doing it with I can't even think of his name, out of Montana, Tanker, I think it is, new chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. Prosthetic service has changed their rules affecting those of us in wheelchairs and with adapted vehicles. Now we have to buy our own vehicle, and the VA provides our hand controls. But they've changed the rules to where we can't get these things fixed until they give us permission. Well, if my wheelchair breaks down and I can't get it fixed, I'm stuck. It used to be I could get it fixed and the VA would take care of it. Now I have to get permission to do it. And I may be 3, 4, 5 days and even 2 weeks sometimes to get a repair done. That's not the way to do business. It would be better. And I'm one of those that believe that a lot of the, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. A lot of the severely disabled veterans would be better off if the VA gave us a card that allows us to choose our own doctor in our community to get health care. That would take the workload off of everything. And there's only 245,000 what are called severely disabled veterans in the VA system. So it would not be that big a harm. But then a lot of people don't agree with me on that. I just have always been a big proponent of doing it that way. And I share with you, I stopped having surgeries in the VA in 1991. Since 91, I've had 8 surgeries. They've all been at Piedmont Hospital. The reason being the quality. Wow. The reason being, I don't want somebody that can't speak English operating on me. Okay. And if I can't understand them and they can't understand me, I don't want them practicing on me. Okay. Get in trouble for saying that all the time, but that's reality. Okay.
I have a question. I'm John Butler. Tommy, I'm so glad that I finally got the chance to hear you speak. I won't belabor this, but what can we do for you?
Well, I think it's not what you can do for me. It's what all of us can do collectively in terms of more of what we do in the community. Y'all have already got great programs going on, and I don't even know this. do y'all still put memorials up every May? You know, in terms of honoring Vietnam guys, or did you run out of guys? You know, that was one of the great things that y'all did. You're very involved in a lot of other arenas. You know, one of the things that I would encourage you that you could do, since I left the Walk of Heroes Memorial, I now volunteer with the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame and do fundraising for them. One of the things that an organization you could do is we have a scholarship program where we give a scholarship. We just did it the first time last year, where we JROTC cadets that are going to go to a college with an ROTC program and enter that ROTC program, they get a $3,000 scholarship to help with their cost of education. That could be something that y'all could look into in terms of sponsoring one of the annual scholarships for that organization. Training future leaders, okay? But personally for me, let's all stay on the same page. If we run up on a veteran or family that needs our help, we get each other involved in making that happen, okay? I don't know if that's a good answer or not, John, but yeah.
Yeah. And to answer your question briefly, we put up 28, I believe, memorials over the years, and we got to the point where
It was 26, John, but we did one twice. So it's 27.
so it was from the Department of Redundancy Department, in other words. So anyway,
Well, see, those recognition things are what's important. Down in front of the Capitol at the Twin Towers,
right.
I had the opportunity of being president of the Georgia Veterans Leadership Program, and Marilyn remembers this with Ron Miller and myself and others. We're the one, not tooting our horns, we got the General Assembly involved and erected that Vietnam statue, and then the World War II, Korean, World War I, Persian Gulf, and Vietnam memorials. And the reason that's important is those people that walk by that get to see something about the price of freedom. You know, one of the things when I go to the Atlanta airport, I go by and look at the blades y'all put up. I can't remember the guy's name on the blade. You know what I'm talking about at the Atlanta airport?
Right.
The helicopter pilot. I go by and look at that every time I fly out. You know, it's just part of great history of what y'all have accomplished.
Yeah, that was actually the one we did twice. Initially, that blade was down at the A concourse, but we moved it back after it got to where visitors couldn't go to the concourses.
Gotcha.
We moved it back so that
Francis McDowell.
one thing that I'm sorry, did somebody else have a question?
I was just saying it was Francis McDowell.
McDowell, yeah, McDowell. In fact, McDowell was a North Georgia College guy too for a little bit, and he quit and kind of did what Tommy did, went and joined the Army and went through the Warrant Officer Flight Program. He was killed up at Anlock. He was flying a Cobra and was on the ground actually, and there was a mortar. They were refueling, rearming, and there was a mortar attack, and a mortar round landed on his aircraft when he was in it. So anyway.
Well,
yeah.
have y'all had Colonel Pat Lassie speak to you?
Yes.
You have? Well, that's great. I know Pete's done her, but boy, her story and her brother's story is just awesome.
Just amazing. Yeah. He was in the tomb of the unknowns until we became known. One of the things that Carrie brought up, I think, was the memorial that we did out at the Walk of Heroes. That was when I met you, Tommy. And that made that whole experience even better than it was. And you were such a great help in that whole thing. When we decided that we were going to do that memorial, we went to see that young Marine PFC's mother, and we asked her where she would want that memorial done. His name was Ted Britt. And she said the Walk of Heroes, and that was by that time they were living out in Rockdale County, and so that was kind of how that whole thing started. And I remember I had not heard of the Walk of Heroes at that time, and Skip Davis and I were kind of charged with getting that thing done. And when we found out that Tommy Clack was the guy in charge of the of the Walk of Heroes, Davis looked at me and says, "Oh man, this is going to be a piece of cake." And it was. You were so helpful to us, and we're so appreciative of that help. And we're so appreciative of you talking to us today. As usual, you've inspired us, and we really do appreciate you and all you've done.
We
So-
thank all of you for your service. And I trust every one of you get your brothers in AVVBA to get their stories in terms of making history a reality for future generations, guys, okay?
Yep, we got it. Thank you, Tommy.